All right, guys, today we're going to talk about constant of proportionality. The good news is yesterday you learned unit rate, or relearned it because we learned unit rate in 6th grade. And constant of proportionality is exactly the same thing. So when you see the words constant of proportionality, also known as the letter K in 7th grade, that is just unit rate. So you can think of unit rate when you think of constant of proportionality. Again, we're going to represent that with the letter K. So again, if you see the words unit rate or constant of proportionality, they're the same thing. All right, so constant of proportionality is going to be on your star chart. Okay, so if you go to star chart, it is going to tell you that the constant of proportionality is K equals Y divided by X. And so I'm going to put a little divided symbol there just to remind you that that fraction does mean divide. Y divided by X. And we are going to practice adding the following to our star chart. So on our star chart, we're going to start adding Y equals KX. And we know that just means K times X. And that should look familiar as we have written equations for and inequalities for a little bit now. And we know that that K is going to represent our repeating number. So that's going to be the number happening. That's the each, the per, the times. Remember that number in front of X is the number that is repeating, okay? And so again, we are going to practice writing Y equals KX on our formula chart so that we don't forget, all right? But again, this piece right here is on your star chart. You don't have to memorize that, all right? So let's practice finding K. And remember, finding K, we're just going to take the Y value and we're going to divide by the X value. All right, so let's talk about it from words. So this is our from words section. So it says a recipe says to use 3 cups of flour to make 48 cookies. What is the constant of proportionality? So that's our keyword there, constant of proportionality. That tells us we're immediately going to go to our star chart. We're going to write down K equals Y over X. Okay, the minute we see that, again, if you also see unit rate or if you see rate or things like that, those are all going to be representing K. So K equals Y divided by X. So let's figure out what Y is. Well, if we keep reading, it says that the number of cookies is Y. Okay, so for Y, I'm going to write cookies. And just like yesterday on our unit rate notes, remember, the first thing we create is a word fraction. So we have cookies on top because Y was on top. And then what is next? Well, we have our X, which is flour. So X is going to be flour. And so now that I have my word fraction, I can plug in my numbers. So I know that cookies was 48. And I know flour was 3. And this is called an improper fraction. We know that. And so we know we cannot leave it improper. We're going to take that cowboy home and we're going to divide. So I'm going to take and write my division out over here. 48 lives in the house. Boots and hat. Set the table so we stay organized. And 3 is going to sit outside. If you need to, you could create your top bottom chart for your division. So our top counts by ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And our bottom is going to count by our threes, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So now I'm ready to divide. Can 3 people sit in 4 chairs? Yes, 1 time. 4 would be here on my list, so 1 time above that. Subtract, and I have 1 left over. Bring down my 8. Can 3 people sit in 18 chairs? Yes, 6 times. And 18 minus 18 is 0. So what is 48 divided by 3? Well, that is 16. So I would rewrite it K equals 16. So my constant of proportionality is 16. So let's use that to create our equation. So remember, our equation is going to follow this rule right here. Y equals kx. So I have a y value, I have an equal sign, and my 16 is my k, and then we have x. And that's the equation that goes with this word sentence. So 48 cookies and 3 cups of flour is y equals 16x. All right, let's try the next one. So the next one says, the table shows how fast a teacher can type. So in 1 minute, they can type 45 words. In 2 minutes, they can type 90 words. 3 minutes, 135, and so on. So it says, what is the constant of proportionality? The minute that I see that, I'm going to go to my star chart, and I'm going to write down k equals y over x. And now I'm going to define what is y, what is x. So I need to keep reading. It says that relates y. So y is the number of words. So I'm going to put words. And then x to the number of minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and label those on my table as well. So it says y was words. So I'm going to put the y next to the words, and I'm going to put x is my minutes on top. And again, I didn't have to know that. I read the problem and it told me. Okay, so now I know all of these bottom values represent y, and then all of the top values represent x. Okay, so let's plug in. Does it matter which piece of my table I use? No, it does not. So I'm going to use the first piece. So what were the words? The words were 45, and how long? 1 minute. So if you chose a different piece of the table, you would still get the same answer. So if I used the 90 over 2, that's still going to get me the same answer. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one you use as long as you use the same consistent section. So I use this section, or you could use this section. It doesn't matter, just pick one. Okay, and again, you can keep going. All right, so let me prove that. So we know that 45 divided by 1 is simply just 45. And if I did 90 divided by 2, that is also just 45. So you see, it doesn't matter which piece of the table I use, I should get the exact same answer. So what was k for this problem? Well, k was 45. So let's write our equation using our k. So remember, our equation follows the format y equals kx. So I have y equals, and then I have my 45, and then x. Okay, so that's the number that's repeating, 45x. All right, and then the last one, it says from a graph. So let's practice from a graph. It says the graph shows the amount of money saved. What is the constant of proportionality? That relates y, the total saved, to x, the number of weeks. Well, ding, 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 constant of proportionality. The minute I see that, I'm going to go to my star chart and I'm going to write down k equals y over x. I'm going to define what is y. Well, y was the total saved. So I'm going to say total saved. And what was x? X was weeks. And you can see on our star chart, on our graph here, our coordinate plane, that time is on the x-axis and total saved is on the y-axis. And again, we did not have to know that. It told us in the problem here. So total saved is y, number of weeks is x. So we need to figure out where we get our numbers from. Well, we need to pick a point on our graph that's going to line up really nicely. So when I say line up nicely, I mean that we want to pick a point that crosses over exactly at a plus. So you can see that this point here, the first point, it does not cross at a plus. And so because it doesn't, I'm going to ignore it. And I'm going to move on to the next one that does cross precisely at this intersection here. So I'm going to grab that point, and that's the point I'm going to use. So I'm going to kind of shade it in, and I'm going to trace it down. So I have 2, and then I have whatever number falls in between 20 and 40. So I have to think about, what are they counting by? Well, what would be in the middle of 20 and 40? That would be 30. So they're counting by tens. Down here would be 10, 20, 30, 40, so on. So I'm going to use the 2 and the 30. And those are my numbers. And so I have to figure out which one is the X and which one is the Y. Well, conveniently, I already labeled it down here. So my X is going to be 2. So over here, I'm going to come over, and on the bottom for X, I'm going to write 2. Again, I wrote it on the bottom because that's where X was, and it was weeks. And is that weeks? Yes, weeks right here. All right, and then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to grab my number for total saved. Well, how much had I saved at that point? I saved $30. And again, that's an improper fraction where your cowboy's larger than your horse. So we need to cowboy and horse divide. I'm going to label my cowboy just to remind myself. And I'm going to set up my division. 2 on the outside, 30 on the inside. 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 left over, bring down your 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times. And we 0 out. So what does 30 divided by 2 equal? That equals 15. So then I would write my final answer, K equals 15. If I wanted to create my equation, remember our equation follows the format y equals, and then we plug in our K, which was 15, and then X. And that's my equation. And that's how we take the constant rate of change from words, from a table, and from a graph. Go practice.